For many of you witches and wizards who have been to Hogwarts, this is going to be no surprise to you. But for those of you who have not attended the school, there were some actually good little nuggets in there about their education. What did they learn and when did they learn it? When were they allowed to take certain courses and when were they not allowed to take certain courses? We're going to break it down and let you guys know all about the education that you would receive at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. We're going to break that down for you now. So get ready and we'll get into the video. So first off, when you are prior to age 11, this happens two ways, okay? Either you are of a wizarding family and you will receive your Muggle education in mathematics and writing, and reading, and everything from your family, okay? At home, it'll be at home teaching, homeschool. That was one way. The other way that this happens is actually going to Muggle school. Many kids, such as Hermione Granger, would have attended Muggle school up until the age of 11, and this is where she would have learned those basic educational skills there. It is either that you learn this from home or you go to Muggle school. So interesting there. The first and second year students, you're very strict in what you have to learn and what courses you have to do in your first and second year of school. Okay, Charms class is something that you have to learn in the first year, and Phileas Flitwick is the one who taught this course. Now, flying class, it was optional for second year students, but in your first year, it was mandatory. You did have to take flying courses in your first year at Hogwarts, and this was taught by Madam Hooch. Potions class. Now, this was taught by Professor Snape for most of the time that we see the films. However, we did see Professor Slughorn come in and take over potions. So there was a change during Harry Potter's era in the potions class, but this is something taught in your first and second year in your basics. Transfiguration, okay? Dumbledore actually taught this when he was teaching at the school, and then it lended itself to McGonagall later on when Dumbledore wasn't doing. Very interesting course there. You did have to do it in your first and second year. Now, Defense Against the Dark Arts, okay? DADA for short. We saw a slew of different teachers for this. Now, if you guys did not know, Tom Riddle, Lord Voldemort himself, cursed this position when he left Hogwarts, and this position was cursed. That is the belief as to why the position constantly changed professors. Okay, first year you had Professor Quirrell. The second year you had Professor Lockhart, who was the fraud. The next year you had Professor Lupin, who was the werewolf. Then you had Professor Moody, and it wasn't actually him, it was Barty Crouch Jr. So that was interesting. And then you had Professor Umbridge, and then you had, obviously, Severus Snape. Then we have astronomy. Now, guys, it probably won't surprise you, but astronomy was very similar to the Muggle form of astronomy. It was the study of stars, the study of the galaxy and space. The professor of this was Aurora Sinistra. And then Herbology, guys. Herbology was taught by Professor Madam Sprout, okay? Professor Sprout was an amazing teacher in this course. She was also head of the Hufflepuff House. And this course obviously was very famous for the mandrakes, which helped to save all the petrified kids during the year of the Basilisk. You learned all the different magical properties of magical herbs, magical plants, all throughout the wizarding world. This is something that we got to see quite a few of them on screen, and Neville Longbottom was very famous for being a great herbology student. He actually went on to become the professor at Hogwarts in herbology. So very, very cool accomplishment from Neville. Hogwarts history of Hogwarts, was taught by a ghost. Professor Binns was a professor that actually died at his desk and didn't realize that he died, and said he continued to teach the course. It was such a boring course, though, that many students didn't want to deal with it. Many students fell asleep during the course. So that rounds out your first and second year, okay? Third year, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. You had to have a minimum of 2 electives, and the ones that you could take were Arithmancy, okay? This was similar to, mathematics and things like that, but in a little bit of a different scale when it comes to the wizarding world. So the study of magical properties of numbers, like the number 7 and lucky number 13, like things like that, from an arithmancy standpoint. Then you had Muggle Studies, okay? Now this was taught by Charity Burbage, okay? We actually got to see her pass away, unfortunately, to the hands of Voldemort in the films. Even Hermione Granger took Muggle Studies as an elective, and she dropped out of the course because she was offended by how far behind and how wrong they were. when it came to Muggles and Muggle lifestyles. They thought very ridiculous things, archaic things about Muggles.
Tell me, what exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
And so even though Charity Burbage was very advanced in Muggle studies, the course itself still was very far behind and lacking. Divination. Okay, this was taught by Professor Trelawney. As we all saw, she was the kook of the school. But she did have her times of actually telling the future and seeing, the future come to life through her prophecies. But, this course was one that was thought to be not necessarily needed at Hogwarts, and even Dumbledore was going to get rid of the course until he knew he needed to keep it in place and bring Trelawney in to keep her protected within the school because of the prophecy that she had laid out about the Chosen One. And then you have the Care of Magical Creatures, which the groundskeeper, Rubeus Hagrid, was the professor of. We got to see different magical creatures within this course. We only really got to see Buckbeak from a standpoint of Hagrid teaching it, but you get to see a lot more creatures in the Fantastic Beasts. Now, very interesting course. I wish we had gotten to see more of this, but it is one of the electives that you could take once you got to your third year. And in your third year, students could also take the study of ancient runes, okay, which we know that Hermione took as well. So this was a very interesting course. Students could, if you were curious, and you were, a high achiever, an overachiever, much like my wife is when it comes to academia, you could take all of these courses if you wanted. You could have all of the electives. However, this would be a strain on your schedule, and some electives were only taught at the same time as others, and so you would not be able to do this without a time turner. So the way that you would go about getting a time turner is the head of your house, okay, depending on whether you're Ravenclaw, Slytherin, whatever, would have to apply for you, write a letter to the Ministry of Magic stating as to why you are of ample student status to receive a time turner and take your courses, okay? Now, there were a lot of things that went into account when it came to time turner, different restrictions and things like that, but as we saw, Hermione Granger did do this. She used it very effectively in her courses to be able to take multiple electives, and this was only given out by the Ministry of Magic to select students, and the students couldn't apply themselves. It had to be the head of the house that did so. And as we talked about Hermione Granger, okay, she actually dropped out of Muggle Studies, as we mentioned, but she also dropped out of Divination. She thought that was ridiculous, and Trelawney was a quack. So she dropped out of both of those classes. So in case you were wondering, you could drop out of electives. You could absolutely drop them, but you could not go below your minimum of 2 that was required from you. So that's the only restriction there. Now, in your 5th year of school at Hogwarts, this gets interesting because you actually meet with your head of house, okay, and you talk about career path. You talk about what you want to do for a career. The reason they had to do this is because you needed to know which ones you had to pass in your OWLs with specific marks, okay? OWLs were the ordinary wizarding level tests, okay? These tests were performed at the end of the 5th year, and students could not continue subjects if they failed the subjects of their OWLs. So if you failed something in your OWL, you would not be able to go on in your 6th and 7th year to continue taking those courses. So if you wanted a career that needed potions in it, you had to pass your potions final on the OWLs. And then you had the N.E.W.T.s, the nastily exhausting wizarding test. Okay, these were very rigorous tests. These tests were only of subjects at the end of your 7th and final year of school that you had to take after you had passed your OWLs and continued to do coursework for your 6th and 7th year in those subjects, and then we'll see what marks you get in your N.E.W.T.s. Again, they were very strenuous, and even top students, like we said, like Hermione Granger, struggled at the N.E.W.T. level. And 6th year students could also take Apparition class. This is something where you could pay 12 galleons. You had to pay separately for this course. It was a 12-week course where the anti-apparition charm over the school would be removed for an hour-long session where students would learn and practice apparating. And then you have Alchemy. Okay, Alchemy is only offered if there's enough interest at Hogwarts. Now you have the famous alchemist Nicholas Flamel from Beauxbaton Academy, who ended up making the Sorcerer's Stone, which made him basically immortal. And that was really, really cool to see. It was something where you would think, oh, so many students are going to want to learn alchemy. Well, it was only offered if enough students had interest. So we're going to go ahead and end the video, guys. What did you think about this video? Is there anything interesting here about the educational path of Hogwarts that you found? And what we would love to know, if you want to leave it in the comments, what 2 electives would you have started taking in your 3rd year? Okay, again, that is Arithmancy, Muggle Studies, Study of Ancient Runes, Divination, or the Care of Magical Creatures. Out of those, which would you take? Personally, for us, we would probably take Arithmancy and the Care of Magical Creatures. We love animals. We also really love numbers and math. So very interesting for us here. That's what we would end up doing. But let us know in the comments what you guys think. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys did like the content, please hit that like button. Let us know. And hit the subscribe button to see when our next videos come out. We appreciate it so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we'll talk to you on the next video. And remember, Christ is King. I want to let you guys know, thank you so much for the thoughts and prayers for Aurora. If you guys didn't know, she has been dealing with a bacterial infection, a series of bacterial infections. She has 3 bacterial infections inside, and it's really been hard. It's really been hard on her. She has been, not really able to move, not able to walk for a long time now. She is feeling better. She's able to walk, and she actually plays with her toys in the evenings and stuff now. And Aurora, do you have anything to say?
Yes, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the prayers. If you could continue praying for me, it would be great. I am probably 80% back to full health, so I am still vicious, but not the lion and tiger that I was before. But I will get there, I promise you. Thank you so much for the thoughts and prayers. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Christ is King.
First off, charms class. We saw this with affiliate. We saw this with position. No, that's not right. That's not right. Scratch that. But you learned a lot of different things about the magical properties of the different magical